This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Today's secret word is Sawmill Gravy.
If I take my time.
Welcome, everyone. Today's guest is Dan McCoy. He was a writer for The Daily Show and Jon Stewart and Trevor Noah, logging a decade at the show. And he's the founder and one-third of the Flophouse podcast. Dan McCoy, and thunderous applause. Welcome. How's it going today?
Good. I'm trying. Did I write thunderous applause in?
You wrote thunderous applause, which was that's a good choice, I think. I should have had a sign.
Yeah.
On the Daily Show, do they have somebody with the sign?
We don't have an applause sign, or we don't. I'm not there anymore. But there was no applause sign, no laughter sign. We did have, a warm-up comic the guy who was mean to the audience, John would always be like, oh man, when he was out, when he was not the warm-up, we would have a worse crowd response, apparently just activating the audience, whether it was by being cruel to them.
Really? So that's the strategy, is you get somebody to come out and kind of do what was that comic, the older guy who used to just kind of come out and do insult comedy?
From Vegas. Why can't I think of
what was his name?
Hockey Puck. My memory has really been going lately.
Me too. It started with last name with an R, I think, and it's gonna come to me at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But
I keep thinking Rip Torn, and that's not his name.
No, it's not.
Five of his name.
And somebody out there listening has it right away. They know exactly who we're talking about, and they're yelling.
Yeah. But I think that the idea was that Don Rickles.
Don Rickles, yes.
That I think there was kind of a good cop, bad cop thing, that when John came out and was stopped and there was no longer a man hassling you.
Right.
So happy,
Yes. Oh, I'm so relieved to not have someone shouting at me now. I love this person. Yeah, I should try that strategy in my classroom. I should intentionally get substitute teachers who are just the worst. And then I can come back and my class will be like, yay, we love you so much, because the last person just shouted at us and was, evil.
Yeah, pretty good psychology.
Yeah. So regular viewers of the show know we always dress up in costume for the show. So tell everybody about what you chose to wear. That costume it's a lot.
And of course, of course I'm dressed as just like Alfred Molina and Boogie Nights. I have a big open robe, a lot of chest hair, small gut, little hammocky shorts.
Yes, and it's silver lame. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And does the shorts match? Because you're seated, I can't see. But do the shorts match?
No. It's just it's what I could throw. I threw the robe on to cover up my main nudity.
Yes, well, it is. Thank you for committing. I'm a huge fan of yours, so I was anxious about this show, and I thought maybe I'll do something really formal, and I'll go tux with tails, because to kind of replicate the formality of the Flophouse, because it's this show that is,
yes, very high
fans
class
of the show know. I mean, it is a well-oiled machine. No one ever talks over Dan. It is.
Yeah.
But instead, I thought Boogie Nights. Yes, I'm going to go Boogie Nights. And so I went with this, very comfortable. It's a little bit of a deep V kind of white shirt, but, just a T-shirt and these very tight denim shorts. And then I'll show off my flexibility here and the roller skates. So I went with Roller Girl.
Of course.
Beautiful. I have not seen that movie. I was realizing in preparing this costume, I haven't seen it since it came out.
Oh, really? They did a restoration, and I don't know what the I don't know how this is done when they did a 70 millimeter version for a movie that was not originally shot on 70 millimeter, but they did some sort of restoration that also like upscaled it for the 70 millimeter presentation that I saw at Lincoln Center just recently. And it was weird. My wife had never seen Boogie Nights, but we had seen Babylon together. We were on the side of Babylon is good. A lot of people don't like it, but like it was wild for her to see Boogie Nights after seeing Babylon.
Yeah.
And
Well, I remember we're the same age, and so if you and I mean, we were what in college or shortly after
yeah.
school when it came out, and I
Mhm.
was not ready for that. Like I thought, oh, this is going to be a sex romp comedy. It's all going to be light and fun, and
Yeah.
then here are these actors acting their hearts out, making people in the sex work profession real, genuine human beings. And I was like, I am an early 20s male. I am not sure I am prepared emotionally for this.
Yeah, I love that movie so much.
It's really well done. Yeah, I should go back and watch it now. And have you met Melina?
Have I met Melina? I've never
Did you
met
when the
Melina.
guests were on the show? Did you get to meet the various guests on who would come
I
on?
met the yeah. So you could ask to meet a guest once in a very long while. In general, they don't want guests to feel uncomfortable by like just random people of the show, but like every once in a while you could sort of cash in your goodwill of not being the sort of person who did this.
Yes.
And I did it twice over my time in the show. I did it one's more obvious than the other. When David Byrne was on, I said, I gotta meet David Byrne. Can I meet David Byrne? And that was very much just like I shook his hand and I'm like, your music's meant a lot to me. And he says, oh, thank you, in a very quiet David Byrne voice. And then that's it. That's fine. I like that's kind of what I expected.
Yes.
And I also asked to meet Gillian Jacobs when she was on the show. And I was, I pulled one of those like, I'm not just a casual fan like moves where I brought her a picture of Gary Marshall to sign because of her ongoing Paul F. Tompkins bit on Comedy Bang Bang, where she would like marry him for his money. And so she signed like, I want his money, exclamation point, love Gillian Jacob. And she was really nice. And honestly, it's like she gave the vibe like she would be happy to chat a little bit more, like chatted a little bit with her. But I was like, I'm also gonna like not press my luck.
Yeah.
And I met, not because he was a guest, but I wrote something. I wrote Sir Patrick Stewart into a script. And they're like, hey, we're gonna try and actually get him. We're gonna try and get, like, sometimes you take these big swings because you're like, why not? Like, we'll see, and he said yes, because he's in Brooklyn and he likes doing that kind of thing. And I got a picture with him afterwards, but I felt kind of bad because I wrote him in as he was like he played a moon rover, and they put him in this like cardboard box with aluminum foil on it and like a little like what am I thinking of, like a TV dish kind of thing on the top of his head. And I felt very bad then afterwards watching him actually do it. Like, what have I done to this man?
Like, the joke is that you're doing this and you actually are doing this. Oh,
yeah.
No. Yeah. Oh, but how cool.
Yeah.
Is he living in, he's back in England now, right? I believe.
Yeah, I haven't seen news about him, about Brooklyn, so I presumed that he had made a change.
I think during COVID, yeah, I think if I remember, he did this really cool thing during COVID where he would put out a video on TikTok every day of one of Shakespeare's sonnets and then just riff on it after reading it. And it was delightful to have, this daily reminder that the world would kind of continue, and and it's Patrick Stewart, who's amazing, and but your Shakespearean sonnet for the day got me through. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he was back in England, living in this very modest home. Like, here's this guy, he's not living in a mansion. He's just, I was like, this is it is what that level of kind of Shakespearean actor. Like I think of them as kind of demigods, and they're people living through a lockdown like the rest of
Well,
us.
and also I think that particularly, sort of people who, he's a big movie star at this point, but I think he really does love the theater and like came up obviously in the theater. I think that style of actor generally like has a bit more of a like, well, I don't know, what am I going to do with like a big house
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
attitude.
Well, and there's probably also a sense that of there's a little more safety in England. Like you don't have to worry about, oh yeah, if I didn't have a giant gated mansion, then the hordes would be on my doorstep. And there's like this, no, people will be polite and leave me alone here. So it's just the American tourists who are mobbing his home. So I have been incredibly excited to have you on the show. First thing I wanted to ask you is, what are you doing work-wise now? So you have been on the Daily Show for many, many years, and now you've got the Flophouse. Kind of, how long's the Flophouse been going now?
It's like 16 years now. Like we had an article in Variety about our 400th episode that was literally it ran, I think, on the day that the Writers Guild strike started.
Right.
So, or like the day after, like, and like, yeah, boo-hoo-hoo for me. I want to make it clear, a lot of people like suffered much greater things because of the strike, but it was definitely like, oh, okay, like we're gonna like, no one's gonna be paying attention to this.
Yes.
They're gonna be coming to Daily Variety to read other things right now. But yeah, it's been going on for a while. So like a little peek behind the curtain. This joke only works if people know that you asked me what I should be asked about, because the truth is I'm not working on anything. I mean, obviously, like there was the strike, and then the SAG strike just now ended. But the point is more like I'm free. Please hire me because.
Oh, okay. Yes. So the word is now out.
The word is. I mean, not that people wouldn't know. This is. I don't know why I think this is more a good way to do this than through my vast network of other writers, but it's just I don't know. Like I'm an aging comedy writer, who stayed like a decade at one show. I did a little bit of another show, but like I have this like deep fear that this is it for me in terms of television. I'm trying to like pivot and see what else I can do. I've been working on a TV or not, sorry, like a movie script that will be.
Well, and you mentioned on the Flophouse that you have a nonfic book that's a collection of essays as well. You
Yeah. You know what? I went out of the Daily Show with like a lot of confidence that like, hey, I've had this experience on one of the iconic late night shows. Perhaps it's dimmed a bit in recent years, but it's like a very important show for a long time. And I have this podcast following. Like people will surely, it won't be that hard to get my Flophouse adjacent book picked up anywhere, but I should have looked at the other side of that, which is like there's not really any need for another book from a comedian talking about pop culture in some way. Definitely, like particularly one that has has a large following in a way,
right? But it's
so
and the publishing industry is brutal. Incredibly challenging.
So I'm considering. I mean, on the one hand, I'm considering self-publishing. On the other hand, I'm like, well, maybe they have a point. No one needs this. I could do something else. So we'll see what the future holds with them.
Well, I wanted to, it's a show about procrastination. I want to avoid process too much, but without asking you about the writing process itself, maybe this is a roundabout way of getting at a process question. You have mentioned a handful of times your frustration with the depiction of comedy writer room in film and television. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, and what's the film that just rankles for
Late Night,
yes.
the Kayleen movie, which is kind of a fun movie in its own right, but is not accurate at all.
What do those get wrong? I mean, Studio 60, what it gets wrong in my estimation is that the comedy they produced wasn't funny, and so that
There is that. The fact that when they come in, the big genius move they have is let's start this revamped Studio 60 with a not a parody, but a pastiche, like a new lyrics to a old Gilbert and Sullivan song. And God knows, I like that song. I like that kind of thing just fine, but that's not the hip new thing that's gonna get eyes on you. It's we're gonna do a song, we're gonna do our own words to I'm the very model of a modern major general. Very odd. And then you see later on Nate Cordry and DL Hughley are riffing, doing news jokes back to each other. And each one of these news jokes, this is something that I definitely can speak to, all of them seem to have 50 words in them, and they're packing in so much information before they get to a C- at best punchline. And I'm you got to keep these things short, dudes. This is where Aaron Sorkin is a very good writer of patter, character patter between people. But when it came to knowing how jokes worked, I'm I don't think you're quite getting it, man. I mean, and then of course there was all this stuff in Studio 60 specifically about how, oh, this is the most important show. It felt like this is the most important show culturally. Comedy is so important. It's going to really move the needle. I can tell you after a decade on one of the most influential news comedy shows, that ain't true. Yeah. People were wanting the writer's autograph. That's certainly not true. The late Matthew Perry, rest in peace, his character comes in and is yelling at the writers that they should dress in suits like him. You get into comedy to not dress in suits. I would wear blazers to the office sometimes, and they would always be you going to a funeral? What do you
yeah, too formal.
Just all these nutty things. The show apparently was the only thing that the head of the network had on her plate, or either Amanda Peet or Steven Weber's plate. They're always hanging around Studio 60. I don't think that that's what they would be doing. I mean, Late Night problem was a lot more of the writers being sort of surprised and annoyed that the host wanted to take a hand in the show all of a sudden. And you would hear tales of Letterman in his later years, mostly not wanting to deal with any of this writing. People would sort of slip scripts under his door, and he would do it, or he would just riff for a while. He was kind of that way from my understanding. But in general, the host is always the most involved in what goes on, and rightly so. As much as sometimes I would be annoyed if my joke would be cut for a joke that maybe they only liked because it was their joke. I'm not the guy out there,
right.
They get the credit and they get the blame, which is both good for a writer and frustrating for a writer that you don't get the credit. But in the words of Mad Men, which would be said many times, that's what the money is for. You don't, you don't get the credit. You get paid.
Get paid. Yes. So how many folks
better job than most people, so don't complain.
Yeah. So how many folks are in that writer's room when, Jon Stewart or Trevor Noah is sitting around with you and trying to figure out what joke he's actually going to tell?
By the end of my time with Trevor, Trevor really seemed to having a lot of people around. So I think the staff ballooned upwards. I can't give you kind of an exact number because it didn't stay so stable, but around 15, I would say, maybe.
And as I'm a novelist. I mean, it's me. The writing room is me. So like that. I've got a couple of folks I've worked with who've done collaborative writing, but it's two people in some cases exchanging chapters, like not even that kind of collaborative writing. And I can imagine, there's a part of me that says, oh my gosh, that would be so much fun to be with other writers and to be working and creating together. And I can also imagine times where it's just got to be so frustrating where you're going, there are too many hands in this kitchen. Like,
Well, I mean, you definitely have preferences. If you're like, there are people who love bouncing ideas around, and there are people who are more like me, who are more like you, who like, I always felt like I can do this faster on my own, which is important because this show is one that needs fast turnover. And I did prefer oftentimes, we would do a mix where like sometimes you would do your thing and then we get combined with someone else's thing, and like the only collaboration would happen later on, and sometimes it would be fully together. And I normally would prefer at least to do the first pass myself if that was a thing. But then again, I think it was probably good for me as a human to learn how to write with someone and to have that like back and forth. Because for us all, I don't know how my old coworkers would look at it, but I think that they would agree with me that while I preferred to write alone, I was not like a difficult person to write with. I did learn how to be like back and forth,
But it was often people would come in with drafts and then polish together.
Yeah.
Which that I think is so much more efficient. Like the idea of that first drafting with 15 people in the room.
Yes.
I just think that can't, especially when speed is of the essence. Like that, I think that could be really counterproductive.
Yes.
Yeah, but the brainstorming sessions don't tend to be the most productive part of any workplace.
Yeah.
So what has been pulling you away from your writing in terms of pop culture lately?
It's not necessarily pop culture. What I came up with when I was thinking about this was I do a lot of karaoke. I did some karaoke on Wednesday that was nominally kind of we told people, hey, this is part of my extended wedding anniversary, because I also had our anniversary on Monday.
Congratulations.
But thank you. But I think that like we would have done it anyway. We're just trying to sort of extend the celebrations. But
I love it. I am a karaoke slut. I tell everybody, like, if there is karaoke to be sung, I will at some point get up there. Do you have like go-tos?
I do, but honestly, at this point, it's more like I'm just desperately trying to find something that I want to sing, that I think I'd be good at singing, that I haven't sung all the time yet. Like that is the degree to which I sing a lot of karaoke. Like,
yeah, well,
the problem.
You're like, have you found that there are songs that you realize, oh, I've done this song many times. It's actually not a good karaoke song. It like the instrumental goes on too long and I'm standing here, like.
Yeah, I mean, there are ones where I'm like, it's less that and more that like maybe I sang it really well once and I've never been able to recreate it. Like I feel like I'm very good at singing Fiona Apple's Criminal in my shower, and less so whenever I've tried it.
Yes.
But,
yes, I can do REM's It's the Underworld As We Know It when no one is present. As soon as anyone is around.
I don't know. Pixar didn't happen. I don't.
Although, in my defense, I saw REM once, and they can't do it either. Like that is one that you can do in studio, but you need the lyrics written out in front of you. It's too fast,
and possibly multiple takes.
Oh yeah.
Audrey, I mentioned before. We had it as part of our anniversary, but there actually is a significance to that, which is that we did karaoke with the same karaoke like group of people, which was actually sort of basically a social group connected to the Max Fun podcast network that I'm on. Like I went to that for a year, she claims, without ever saying anything to her. She was in the same.
Oh,
I,
the annual retreat thing that they have? The
no. It was no. This was just like an organization, Max Fun New York, that just like a
Oh,
listener
okay.
put together, but they would have. There's a place in New York where they would have karaoke where you pay a flat fee of around $16 on like the afternoon of a Sunday or whatever it was, and then you get like 8 hours of it in a room. So we like there would be like a standard group of people, and I apparently didn't talk to her for a long time, which is I think I'm actually not unpersonable once I have a like the ice has been broken. I'm just not good at doing that or thinking like, oh, I should be the one to say
and
something.
also there's there's an attractive woman. If I just walk up and start talking to her, I'm creepy. So I just won't. You know.
I think I am scared of coming off as creepy, but I don't think I was so worried. I just like, I don't know. It was like during the weird period of my life where I was like, I had been married before, I was single. I would like go there, I'd be like quiet, and then I would sing songs.
Yeah.
And so I probably started singing like a much more of a weirdo by not
Yes.
talking
Yes.
much.
Now, do you two sing together?
Well, that's where you run into a problem where there's like only so many good duets. Like as much as there are not that many songs, there are even fewer duets. And we've gotten to a point where like we can kill Suddenly Seymour. Like we can kill at it. Like we can really like, especially if we're in a group who've never heard us sing it before. But it's just like at this point I have to disappoint her sometimes because I'm like, we've done it so many times.
Yes, everyone in here has heard us do that one before.
Yeah. Our last song at our wedding was that song from Mannequin, Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now, because
Yes.
that is a good karaoke duet and one that we've done a lot of. But
Oh, classic. Yes,
yeah.
another film I have not gone back and seen since
I
childhood.
think that one probably you don't need to revisit.
Probably doesn't have the same kind of acting caliber as Boogie Nights. No. In fact, I'll bet there's some really problematic stuff. That one might be a good revisit for the Flophouse to go, oh, this is a nightmare.
I mean, I don't think that Hollywood is probably the best depiction of a gay man, the most sensitive, although he, at least in an 80s movie, is presented as one of the heroes of the film.
Yes, true.
That's something, I suppose.
Yeah, that yeah. That would be interesting to go back and go, oh no.
Yeah.
So what about news-wise? What's been pulling you away from your writing lately?
I'll be honest, this one was tough for me at first because I was thinking about, like, I did spend that much time on a comedy news show. That combined with the fact that everything seems to be horrible has really dampened my desire to look at any news. I try, like, there's one part of me that's like, well, am I just sticking my head in the sand? But then like the other part of me is like, what am I going to do about most of it other than making myself upset? But so the thing that kind of struck me actually was more in the industry news area, which was like the David Zaslav shelving of this Coyote versus Acme movie that is completed, that like John Cena is in, that like James Gunn was one of the like producers on, like some of the big talent they have over there right now shelved for yet another tax write-off.
A tax write-off. That's the thing that's so I thank you for, I did not know about this story, and that's because I'm a political obsessive and all the news is horrible, and so I've been reading stuff that I can do nothing about and that is just atrocious, and it has been a bad time in the news, and then I got to go read this story and be outraged about something else, so that was nice. Thank you. That's well, it is a wild story. I mean, I don't know. I think it is a good kind of symbol of a shift in the industry from, people who, there's always been, awful venal stuff going on in the industry, but at least people wanted to make movies. Like this is,
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of the problem. People kept saying this well, why the strike went on so long was, studio heads used to be people who like, yeah, like always people making movies, like quote unquote creatives would like complain that the studio was out of touch in this or that way, but they tended to be people who had come up in the movie business and enjoyed movies. And now, I mean, like Zaslav is also in the entertainment business, but he's being ported over from like, the reality side of things, like just doing absolute garbage.
yeah.
And not that all reality is garbage, but the stuff that he seems to specialize in is more on that side. And
Well, I'm wondering if he's trying to establish himself as I'm not a reality TV guy. I'm a high finance guy. Like I want to show the stockholders that I'm a CEO so that I can get a job outside of this industry entirely. Because it seems like what he's done is
care about that side. I mean, and then on other things, you've got, Amazon is now a major studio, Apple, like, so people who have no sort of tradition being in this business got into it so they can vertically integrate their other products and like control the content. And so they don't care about being sort of good stewards of the material or treating the people who make it fairly. So that's why it took so long to make a deal. But I do like it, to the point at which finally people got in the room. They're like, all right, let's just do this,
Yeah. Do we I have not seen the terms yet. I've been following this. I'm a big time union guy, but
the writers' terms are pretty good. I don't like, I think that we basically got everything we were asking for. The SAG terms, I don't really understand that side of it because it's not my thing as well. It sounds like they didn't get exactly what they're asking for, but they got kind of something that they were able to come up with together to compromise on, which is, that's good. Also good.
Well, and if you come out of a negotiation and everybody's equally unsatisfied, that's the point. Like, that's where you want to get to. But I felt like the writers was a win. Like that was, the writers could be really happy with theirs. I'm really curious what the language around AI is going to be. I think that's going to be a story that extends beyond the actors. Like, as those of us in the, all the creative professions that are threatened by AI, this might be some of the language that's kind of a foundation for how to protect ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, and like I think that I'm not even the most hardline person. Like I think that there's probably a place for that technology, but it's not in generating original material because it is all just going to sort of draw on like the most formulaic things and that's already the direction we're headed. So it's just gonna, I think if you move to that direction, you would just get exponentially more, homogenous stuff and people would get bored. So like
it's a mediocrity machine.
Yeah.
And I tell students, all the time, like, sure, if you want to turn in something to me that is all in quotation marks, and then you cite your source and you say, yes, ChatGPT wrote this, it's not plagiarism. Like at that point, go ahead. I will give the grade to ChatGPT, but like you need to learn to cite your source. And I think that's the challenge of it is how do you credit people appropriately? It's going to be, there is another lawsuit that's like
AI will just be drawing on all sorts of false sources. Like you see it in like your iPhone used to be pretty good at correcting your grammar and spelling. Now it's not anymore. And it's because it's relying on all these people who don't know proper grammar and
Yes, it's like dropping the apostrophes in don't and stuff because it's going, oh, other people don't do that. Humans don't do that, as far as I can tell. And it's so infuriating to an English teacher. I'm watching this going, please, who's teaching who at this point? The AI is now teaching my students not to put the apostrophe in don't. You know? No.
And again, like, if you're texting me like that, I don't care.
Right.
But don't like correct it to something wrong. Like I'm not prescriptive about language, but also we have to, agree on a certain set of things to make sure we can communicate with each other. And like AI doesn't understand that necessarily.
Yes. I try and teach my students about kind of lexical levels and, levels of formality. And it's like, it's totally the way you text with your friends is entirely appropriate. And please don't turn that into your college professor that way, the chat, AI can't figure that out because it's saying this is what people do. I wonder if anybody's working on that, like, teaching the AI to go, okay, formal writing is like this and casual writing is, I bet somebody is working on that as we speak. But so when what's another hobby that you've been working on when you're not writing?
I'd say the biggest one for me these days is drawing. I mean, there was a period where I was sort of drawing, every day, I think. These days, sometimes I'll do a little bit and not for a couple of days, and then like a burst of like 5 drawings. I love doing it. I try to now do it in moderation because I tend to find that I get into this like altered mind state. And if I only get so much like quality time with my wife, like I don't want to just be like focused on this other thing and sort of go off into space. But it's a thing that I did a lot when I was a kid. Then I sort of at a certain point I switched my focus into performing and writing creatively, and for whatever reason it just sort of fell away. And now I think during the pandemic, it really sort of came roaring back. First, I sort of had more time and I was doing these Zoom life drawing sessions every week. And but
who was that through? That's cool.
An organization called Drawing America, specifically Drawing New York. The Zoom ones during the pandemic were all costume drawing because obviously you don't want like naked models who maybe don't want their like a screenshot taken of them,
right.
But then they have like at the arts club they have some like nude life drawing that you can do as well, and they're just like things that you kick in some money for the models for their time and everyone in a room drawing, and it really improved. Like now I think that I much like say a Rob Liefeld.
That's what I was gonna say. You can already draw better feet than Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, like I never drew like him, but I sort of had this surface flash that would cover up for a lot of fundamental problems, and the solution to that was to do a lot of life drawing. And now I can much more sort of picture how the body moves in space in a way that has really seeped down into all of my art, I think.
I am jealous. That is an area where, I mean, perspective on the body in space and then not getting your proportions all off. If a person is, standing perfectly unnaturally, it's a little easier to go, okay, here's this model, but the way the body exists in space is challenging to capture. Hands, I really struggle with hands, and so that daily practice, I'm sure it was beneficial to see that progress.
Yeah, well, I think that we all as people we're seeing stuff around us, but we are also sort of constructing a much simplified version of what we're seeing in our mind. And if we're imagining a person, like there's all these errors we're going to make because we care about the face, so we're going to make the head way bigger than it needs to be and the face way bigger on the head, and like this or that thing. We're just not going to have an truly accurate version of it when we try and put it down on paper. But if you take the time to look and actually have it sink in, it creates all the difference. And it's a good, I have, even though I have a very easy life in a lot of ways, I am prone to a lot of stress and anxiety. So anything that can be described as meditative is good for me, and I tend to enjoy it.
Yes,
whether it be drawing, whether it be playing the guitar not very well and singing along to myself, whether it be cooking, or I've started yoga. Like, I think all of these things I have drifted towards because I find that they make me feel better.
Yes, that was during the lockdowns. I picked up painting again, and that was something I had not done. And that exercise of seeing light in a different way, was really calming. I mean, it was really good centering, because I'm with you there. I tend to feel a lot of anxiety about things I have no control over. And so that was another thing about the canvas, is this is a space I can control, and that was nice to just go, I'm just focused here right now.
Well, I mean, that plays into, performance too, where, again, like, I feel like if you catch me in a non-performance mode and I don't know you personally, I'm going to have a hard time feeling comfortable. And there are people who are a lot more personable than I am, maybe, in those situations, who are like, I don't understand how anyone can perform, and like, how do you perform? And I'm like, well, to me, it's much better because, like, that is a space I control, like, that is, it's a different, like, it may seem uncomfortable to me. To me, it's like, that's much better. Like, I'm in control.
It's interesting to think about that in terms of, my fiance talks a lot about masking. Folks who are neurodivergent, that's something they have to do all the time. And I wonder, to what extent, when we are in a performative space, is that a mask that we're comfortable wearing, or are we, in that context, actually unmasked? Like, this is a place where I can be more me because I know the rules and I understand. So I have some sense of safety.
I'm being very revealing of myself. I like my brother was recently, like, diagnosed neurodivergent, like, on the spectrum, and I have a lot of similar behaviors to him. Mm-hmm. And I have had no particular no one has diagnosed me because I've looked into it and it's extremely expensive and no insurance will cover it. But there's always been, like, ever since I heard that, I'm like, am I a little bit on the spectrum as well? And is that what's going on with a lot of things?
I have been armchair diagnosed by a lot of neurodivergent people, okay. Which is not quite, technically the same thing, and doesn't provide medication. But yes, I think I'm, and I always say to folks, we're all on the spectrum somewhere.
Exactly. That's to some degree. Is it useful for you to know? Maybe, maybe not. Like, in some ways it can be helpful to, like, know you have these tendencies. In other ways, I think that, on my bad days, I'm like, well, do I have these tendencies? And then, like, it boxes me in. Like, I'm like,
yeah,
just like this, like, and who knows?
Yeah. And do I want to be more aware of them and therefore thinking about them all the time?
Yeah.
Do I want to be? It's like when somebody, makes you think about the thing that, you are already self-conscious about. Great. Well, now I'm contemplating. So one of the things I always ask folks about is, the part of the premise of the show is to help readers get to know writers. And so, just to kind of get to know you, if you were in you as Dan McCoy, not a character you choose to play, but if Dan McCoy were a Dungeons and Dragons character, what would be his race and class?
Oh, okay. That's different than what I would choose to play. As I think most of us choose things not like ourselves. But I think looking at it, I would go with halfling, since they're basically the non-copyrighted by Tolkien
Yes.
hobbits, and love comfort and food and all that stuff. And then I think I would go with paladin,
Yeah.
just because of a general like punishing desire to like do what is right.
Yes. You and I are both, Midwest Protestants. Like, and I wonder to what extent that is the cultural milieu in which we were raised, where there's a lot of pressure to, you know, help somebody out when they need it. And,
Yeah, and maybe to a certain degree, like it's not deeply felt. It's just it's just that it's the cultural expectation of being good is this. And I feel like I've been talking a lot about her, but my wife is a first generation Filipina woman who, like, born in New York, went back to the Philippines for a while, came back here, and her family is much more like sort of, there's not the same kind of passive aggression.
yes.
Like, and it's been a process of learning how to communicate better, I think, because she doesn't like passive aggression, which I totally understand. But also, like, I think I have been taught to like look for what everyone is secretly saying. And sometimes people aren't secretly saying, sometimes people are saying what they mean.
Yes, I have, had to navigate this as an adult. Like, so the, Jewish side of the family speaks with a certain kind of there's a whole kind of cultural intonation as far as how quickly you interrupt, how direct you are, how loud you are, the volume level. And then, growing up in Michigan and Illinois, and my folks are Presbyterian, like, and so very different kind of speed and ways of interacting. And then it's now, like, in my 40s, finally realizing, oh, there are things that I accepted about the way that I should emote, or should not emote, that were culturally ingrained by that kind of Midwest Protestantism. I remember I was thinking about, oh, I heard this very funny song. Somebody out there did this incredible rendition of Don't Stop Believin' and Metallica's Enter Sandman, and hybridized them. And it is a thing of beauty. Like, it starts off and it's totally Metallica, and then I could just, John Scalzi, the author, posted it and was like, when he DJs, he plays it, and you can just see the the Metallica fans just rage when they start realizing what they're listening to. And the song made me so happy, and then immediately I started feeling guilty for feeling so happy. And I was like, why am I oh yeah, this is, we're not supposed to have big feelings. Like,
it's wild. And like, if anyone if anyone is watching who can hear this and needs to hear it, try not to wait until you're middle-aged to deal with your feelings. Like, I think that something about middle age compels you to do it, but it's a lot easier, I think, if you start earlier.
Yes, don't wait till you realize you need therapy to get therapy. Please get, yes, exactly. Okay, so we'll take our quick ad break so that we can go, okay, we even started talking about our feelings. That we need to, take a deep breath. And then so I'll have Doug take us to our ad break. And then when we come back, I'll ask you what you've been daydreaming about.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Karen Eisenbray, and I wear a lot of hats. Wife, mother, church lady, writer, editor, punk rock drummer. I gave all my hats to Barbara, the main character of the Gospel According to St. Rage, and Barbara and the Rage Brigade. Barbara isn't your typical high school junior. She's been invisible since the 3rd grade. But when a magic hat brings her back into the light, Barbara is ready to take on the world. First priority? Start an all-girl garage band. Miraculous superpowers were never in her plan. But sometimes you get what you need. Bullies and school shooters don't stand a chance. Truth, justice, rock and roll.
So, Dan, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
This one was hard for me because like most of the daydreaming I've been doing has been trying to work out various plot things for a screenplay I'm trying to write. Like part of me is like, for a while TV was a safe place to be, and now I'm like, I gotta pivot into trying to be a screenwriter, see what happens there. But I often sort of daydream about the cats. We are a very devoted cat family, all the more so I think for not having children. That not that they're the same thing, but a lot of energy that might otherwise go somewhere is being put into the cats. And just like wondering, like pondering the fact that like these are animals that I will never know exactly what they're thinking. Like they are alien to me. They're a creature of a different species that are just living in my home, and it's very odd when you think about it sometimes, and just wondering what's going on. And sometimes it goes too far. I remember a time when I made myself sad thinking, if I was the size of a mouse, Archie would just eat me. Like, and, you know, this is not a problem that I need to worry about.
Yes. How much does my cat love me? It would consume me were I its food. Well, yeah.
Would he recognize me? Maybe if he took the time to smell me, maybe.
Yeah. But the relationship with the dynamic would be so changed. Like you can no longer serve me. So yeah, I don't think you should feel that is a judgment on your relationship. You would no longer have the same relationship. So
no, it's true. But I think that is what made me sad. Like, at your heart, what is this relationship to you?
Yes. I mean, on the other hand, to be fair, if you were the size of a mouse, you might not love Archie in the same way. You may find Archie terrifying. Both of you
probably would.
Yeah. You wouldn't see Archie as a source of comfort, but of menace.
That's true.
These dramatic changes in our relationships. Yes. As people who have had human relationships change. Now I'm thinking back in my human relationships going, at what point did I become the size of a mouse in that relationship? There's a metaphor here.
Yeah. It's always shocking I had like a friend, I'm not gonna, I obviously will not call them out. I had a friend like break up with me basically out of nowhere, like just like, you know what, like I don't feel like I feel sad after we hang out. And granted, it was like after my divorce, I was probably like taking more than I was giving, but I was like, that's fine. I'm not gonna argue. Like, you have made probably what's a difficult decision for you. I'm not gonna argue this. I'm not gonna what you were telling me is like, you don't want this anymore. I do wish maybe you I had to spur that conversation out of them. And I'm like, I do kind of wish you had said something earlier rather than your apparent plan was to just sort of gradually ghost me. Like, who's the real monster here? I can change.
Yes, yes, yeah. Thanks for giving me a heads up about the fact the building resentment. Yes, yeah. No, I certainly feel that one. The cat grew exponentially.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? Also, I'm not. I bear that little mark of resentment, but on the other hand, like, that's a good way of thinking of it. The cat grew. Like, sometimes things just change, and that's fine.
Yeah, the dynamic. I've very much experienced that with, I'll have relationships that are based. I'm a father. My son just went off to college, but you have those relationships where it's like we are friends because our kids are both at the same preschool.
Right.
And we get together, and and then we are meeting weekly because our kids are on the same swim team, and then they're not. And what did we really, and so yeah, there is a lot of kind of it, it's not ghosting. It's the relationship was built on something, and it didn't really feel like it could be sustained without that thing. Yeah, the cat got bigger or the mouse got smaller, like
It happens.
yeah. So we let's see, I'm excited about this. What's something that you want the audience to know about that's coming up?
Well, so I was thinking about we are going to go on tour, my podcast, in late January, but a couple of those dates are not confirmed yet.
Is there a Portland date by any chance?
A Portland there? I can tell you there is a Portland date. That's one of the ones that is they already have a link for. I said confirmed. I meant there's just like a couple of them aren't announced, and we're waiting for the venue. But so
I did not know that. I am getting my tickets. That is awesome. Okay, good.
Well, I made one sale.
Yes, you did. Yes, sale done.
Yeah. But also, so during the strike, we had been doing these sort of bigger virtual shows that were sort of like versions of what we would do as our live touring show, which we hadn't been able to do at first during COVID. And then we had some issues with our booker, blah, blah, blah. That stuff is behind the curtain. That doesn't, like, we just couldn't, we lost the person who would do that for us, which was another setback in touring. So we were doing these virtual shows, but they were kind of like these like big versions, big in quotation marks, of like our touring shows. And we thought, like, let's do something during the strike that is what we can't do for the struck against companies, which is do a TV show. Like we can do that during the strike because we're not on strike against ourselves. Like, not everyone, I think, understands the mechanics of like the writer's strike. It doesn't mean like you can't write at all. It means that we are striking against a particular group of companies that are represented by the AMPTA, and that's who we sort of came to a contract with. But in the meantime, the Flophouse, my podcast, has been doing this season of 1 hour shows, and you can get tickets if you're interested. If you are somehow interested but don't already listen to us flogging it on our own show, you can get them at theflophouse.simpletix.com. That's theflophouse.simpletix.com. But it's like an hour-long show. Each individual show, we like sell tickets for like $7, but then you can get a package for the whole season. And it's kind of been a good idea for us. It was sort of Elliot's idea, and then we both like threw in some like tweaks on it that like made it mean the difference, I think, in our lives between like being able to really continue as we're and not like because, as I said, Elliot and I, our main jobs used to be writing for television. There was a time we couldn't do that.
And so the shows, the individual episodes, can folks go back and get those previous ones?
You can get previous ones, I think, still individually. Also, definitely, if people get a season pass, they can they have access to everything.
Okay.
In the season until the season ends, which I think is ending like at the end of January.
Okay, good, because I'm doing NaNoWriMo, so I'm not watching anything for the entire month of November because it's my writing month. But I can now catch up in December. Those will be a lot of fun. I've heard on the podcast talking about which movies you covered, and I'm like, I need to watch these. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think it would seem like a very much a hodgepodge of movies to people who don't already listen to the show, but we chose them kind of by like, what have we invoked a lot of times on the show, but haven't talked about, and in some cases haven't seen ourselves. Like, we did a double feature of Hot Dog the movie and Hamburger the motion picture, which are movies that we have brought up a lot of times just because we find those titles so funny. Right. But none of us had seen either.
None of you had seen them. It wasn't like one person was saying, oh, we've got to check out Hot Dog and Hamburger.
I mean, I probably saw little bits of an edited version of of them on like USA Up All Night, but
Oh, I will. Yeah, I will have to. And are how long are the episodes?
those ones are all about an hour. I think
Okay,
that
so they're not as long as the full.
no, we're very carefully like trying to keep them more bite-sized because we have a tendency to indulge a lot of times in our presentations we indulge, usually like in live shows we each get our own presentations of these three like big comedy PowerPoints before we even get to the normal show, but these we just do one and we keep it as tight as we can.
Yeah, although I give you credit. I think you were the first PowerPoint presenter of that started the PowerPoint trend, and those are epic.
It's big now, yeah.
Yeah, those I did not. I mean, working in my field, PowerPoints are something we dread rather than look forward to. Let me tell you, they're and I'm not talking about the kids' PowerPoints. My students' PowerPoints are much better than the professional PowerPoints I am presented at professional development opportunities that are painful. So I was like, a PowerPoint can be funny. This is.
I love seeing what Stuart and Elliot come up with. I have to admit, I kind of dread making mine because over the years, like I've learned enough about PowerPoint or Keynote as I like to care about how it looks. And once that happened, oh boy, like something that used to be kind of a lark, like I would just toss things off. Like now I take care and it takes like a week to do.
Yes, take deep pride in the polishing of the PowerPoint. But yeah. So one of the things I always do is I toss up a weekly poll. Actually, I say I always do it. Sometimes I forget. When I remember, we put up a weekly poll. What would be your question to ask the universe?
Well, because I made biscuits this morning, I was thinking about that was in my head. My thought was best gravy. And I don't know whether it has to be a dual choice or it can be multiple choices.
It can be multiple choice. What would be the multiple kinds of gravy?
Well, here's what I say. I am not a fan of just like your brown gravy. Your like classic British brown just goo.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that. I do like turkey gravy, like you would have at Thanksgiving. I've had some very good mushroom gravy at my brother's vegan Thanksgiving. My personal favorite gravy is Sawmill Gravy.
I don't even know what that is.
That is the Sawmill Gravy. It's the white peppery gravy that you would get with, if you have it with biscuits and gravy, it's going to have some sausage in there, but you can have it without sausage. But, you basically just add some flour to the fat that's in your pan after cooking some sausage, and then you add a little milk and a lot of pepper.
And why do you know what the etymology of Sawmill Gravy?
You know what? I should have looked this up.
No, I'm curious.
I have no idea. I just know that's I think that's what I'm talking about now.
I've never heard that term, but I think I would go with sausage gravy. But Sawmill Gravy. I mean, I like the name better. It's cooler. Sawmill Gravy.
There's no specific Wikipedia thing for Sawmill Gravy, but there is just when you start typing in Sawmill Gravy, it goes to the gravy page. I don't know. It's a cream gravy or white gravy, parentheses, Sawmill gravy, is a bechamel sauce made using fats from meat or meat drippings. The fat in the drippings is combined with flour to make a roux, and milk is used. So I was dead on.
Spot on, yeah. Okay. Sawmill Gravy. Okay, well, I will run that and we will see. I wonder if what percentage of the viewers will go, I don't know, Sawmill Gravy sounds kind of cool, but I don't know what that is. So I'm so what is something that you are, a firm believer that our writing and our reading are absolutely connected? What is something you are looking forward to reading that you've not yet read?
I have had waiting on my stack. I have so many, so many books. I keep putting like books on my gift wish list
Yes.
and I haven't read them, but one that it's like right at the top of my pile, which I got from my co-host Elliot, who's also a big Marx Brothers fan, is Four of the Three Musketeers, the Marx Brothers on Stage, which is a book specifically talking about, like, not the movies, like the work they did in vaudeville, the work they did on Broadway. I presume, like, I haven't, read the book yet. Like, I presume it would also cover like stage work they did once they got into the movies.
But it's an earlier time in their lives.
Yeah, they came out of the vaudeville tradition, and then like they really, like, what catapulted them into the movies was they had success on Broadway. Like they did the big one that they did was called Alsatias, and it's like there's no record of it as a performance, because it was a Broadway show, but my God, it would have been wonderful to see.
Oh my gosh. I read a book of his letters my uncle gave me when I was a kid. And yeah, just in casual correspondence, the wit is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
Extremely funny.
Yeah, that would be I would enjoy that. I would enjoy I can totally imagine why Elliot would be into that. I recently finished his novel, which if he shares it, you should check out. But it's set in the 30s Hollywood, kind of transitioning out of vaudeville and the talkies, and it's that is an era that appeals. Certainly, it's
something about. I mean, like I know I would have absolutely hated it in some way, but like it is that just dream of these people were so funny because they had to grind their skills to a sharp point, going from town to town, these rinky-dink theaters with unsympathetic, a lot of times, audiences. And
you ever read Outliers by who wrote Outliers? Malcolm Gladwell.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Beatles. Like, you gotta be good if you're going to be playing in a strip club for 8 hours a day with people would rather not be focusing on you. You better get good. Like, that grind. Yeah, it would not have been a pleasant experience to be them. It would have been amazing to see them. Yeah, that would be really interesting to hear about how they kind of navigated the kind of internal politics. I don't know how well they all got along.
I mean, it's my impression. I mean, Chico was like a big gambler, and he chased a lot of women, and Harpo did to some degree. Groucho, I think, was a little less. And Chico was like constantly losing all of his money, and like that would sort of require the team to like do something else to get him some money. And it was sort of my impression that like he was difficult, and maybe he and Groucho would have a little more friction, and Harpo, like that sweetness you sense on in the movies, like he was the kind of the one who was like the peacemaker of the group.
Yes, peacemaker, middle child. Yeah, that's interesting. That would, and it would be interesting to see how that tracked over the course of their careers too. There are things that you can do that become a rut, where you're going, this is always the role I play in our relationship, and then there are things where it's, I'm really tired of playing this role in this group, doing this for many, many years. So that would be interesting to read. I'll have to check that one out as well. I'd like your recommendations. Who else is somebody I should reach out to have on this show?
Well, you know what? I don't know whether you've reached out or this person at all. So I recommended for The Daily Show a friend of mine that I've been working with, doing sketch for a long time. I did an animated. It was animated by me, so it wasn't very well animated. Web series with. His name's Matt Koff. He works there, and I believe he was just named funniest stand-up in New York. There was a contest of like, sort of people maybe like on the precipice, people like wouldn't be household names, but are working comics in New York. And I just saw that, like, I'd seen for a long time that he'd been posting that he was in it. And I think he won based on what he posted to Instagram, and deserving, because he's a very funny stand-up, and he's sort of like, I mean, he obviously, like, being a writer on the Daily Show is a great form of success in one way, but I don't think he's gotten his due yet as a stand-up. So I hope that he does.
Yeah, that would be great. I will absolutely reach out or try and connect, and I'll drop your name and we'll see if that gets him to do the show. Okay, so before we do our send-off, I got some folks to thank. Thanks to Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. And thanks to Halizna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band or you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email notapikepublishing@gmail.com. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making the show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And I can't forget to mention, Writers Not Writing is a production of Not a Pipe Publishing. So please go to notapikepublishing.com, check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it. Please check out the Flophouse and Flop TV with Dan and the crew. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those myself. And then when you check out the Flophouse, please give it a rating and a review as well. It helps. Doesn't take a ton of your time. Make Dan's day. And I'm too old to tell you to smash that like button, but if you could gently tap on the like button for this show an odd number of times, I would greatly appreciate it. So Dan and I would like you to remember 3 things this week. Dan, what's your advice for everybody for this week?
Just remember, when you use a chef's knife, the proper grip is to pinch part of the blade to prevent it from rolling in your hand. And a dull knife is always more dangerous than a sharp one, because you might slip while you're cutting. You want a sharp one that's just going to go right through.
And that's not a metaphor for anything else. That's literally a dull knife is more dangerous than a sharp one. I'm sure there's we could think of something that also is,
it would be a great metaphor as well. You're right.
A dull knife is more dangerous than I think there's a political valence there that we could explore. We might have the next election could be about the danger of a dull knife.
Dull knife.
So I always tell folks a book without spaces would be gibberish, and our lives need spaces too. So don't ignore the spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you.
If I take my time.